Hi everyone and welcome to Isami Rat Care. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I decided that it might be useful to do a bit of a review section, so where I look at specific kind of cage accessories, services, shops, kind of even down to specific brands that I personally use or have used in the past, and kind of what my gut feel is for them. Things to look out for and so on. I know I get in a lot of my posts, I get people asking me what I'm using specifically, so I thought it might be useful and interesting. So this is my first one, and it's going to be looking at a particular service that I use regularly and get a lot from, and also a book, because they're all tied together. So this is the Ratwise and Scuttling Gourmet. So Scuttling Gourmet is where it kind of started. This is run by a lady called Alison Campbell. For those of you that have been around the rat fancy for long, you'll recognise that name quite a lot. She's been around for a long time and kind of helped a lot of people with advice and such. So the probably most well-known thing of hers is her rattery name was Shunammite. And actually it's where a lot of the kind of great grandparents of my rats came from. They're part Herlines and part a lovely lady called Brandywine. And the way you will have heard of Shunammite if you haven't been around the fancy for a while, so you don't recognise the breeder name, is the Shunammite Diet. And that is actually based on what I base all my foods on. And it's a particular diet that Alison came up as a kind of alternative to buying off the shelf rat mixes, back when rat rations didn't exist. And actually the quality of rat food was pretty appalling. It's actually better now. You can get some mixes that are okay. In the past, most of them were kind of rife with problems or poorly balanced. So Alison came up with the original Shunammite diet, which has gone through various iterations through the years, and it's been quite interesting watching it develop from the early days and seeing how it's come. And it is the basis of what I feed my rats on now. I might do things slightly differently in the way that I make half a straight space Shunammite mix and then mix it with some rabbit foods and so on, but at the heart of it, it's the same learning that I picked up so many years ago. And a lot of this is captured in her series of books called the Scuttling Gourmet. So I have a second edition here. I was looking through my cupboards. I do own, I think, a first and a third edition. Can't find either of those. The third edition, and I think there's now up to fourth edition, are better. They do contain a lot more, and in fact it was a complete rewrite and almost rethink in some respects as well, because there's a lot more details. It was round about when we started on the straight space food and such. I will say that the Scuttling Gourmet, if you are interested at all in rat nutrition, if you're interested in kind of recipes for your rats and that kind of thing, it's brilliant. I've read it cover to cover, actually multiple versions. This was the first one I got, and the kind of third edition I read all the way through, and actually the fourth edition I think I've got in an ebook format, which is quite handy, and also handy if you're not based in the UK, because it used to be like virtually impossible for you to get it. But it's got lots of useful sections. Ones that I particularly like is where it goes into detail on each individual grain and its kind of pros and cons and that kind of thing. For me, who likes to kind of design my own mixes, that's very useful information for me. But then there are other sections which look at the impact on kind of ageing rats. A lot of what I know about feeding older rats comes from that, actually, and a little bit of reading I've done around, and actually stuff me and Alison have talked about when we've met up. But it's got an excellent section on that, and feeding for kind of growth and reproduction. So for those of you with young rats or that are breeding rats, it's well worth reading that. Looks into fruit and veg and has a really comprehensive fruit and veg list on there that is safe to feed your rats. And I think even looks into some of the processed kind of human cereals and such, and what's good or bad of that. Really useful. I class it as one of my rat bibles that I keep on my hand all the time. The reason I don't have my third edition is I lent it out to someone because I've got my fourth edition on my phone now, so that works really well for me. So I would definitely recommend looking into the book. What I'll do at the end of this video, I will put on a link to Alison's website where you can buy copies of the book, or you can join the Ratwise thing, which is the other thing I want to talk about. So Scuttling Gourmet is where it started, and then I'm not sure if it's about a year, or I think it's just over a year ago actually, last January, Alison came up with the idea of doing a subscription service. So this to me is the equivalent of finding a really good rat magazine with really informative articles, except in this case it's in the form of videos and PDFs, little kind of excerpts from one of her books, and it's all about getting into real depth behind the behaviour side of things and the feeding side of things. So those are the two areas that she's really digging into in Ratwise. It's all based on a Facebook group, so you do need to be a member of Facebook to access it, but it's a closed Facebook group, and she has various kind of different bits and pieces. Each week there is a mixture of like a video, an informative video, Alison talking, so she talks to other people about particular topics as well. I think I've done a couple, one around digging boxes, which was quite fun, and that kind of thing, and it's all designed to look at partly different people's experiences, but also to look at the science behind it. And you'll know from my videos that I get quite into the science and the knowledge and the such, but I don't go into the same level of depth of this, and I'll be honest, Alison's also more organised than me, so she's planned out what she wants to talk about, whereas I just go bleh, and it all comes out. But it's really interesting, and I find every video I watch I've learned something from, and that's despite 30 odd years of rat keeping. So I think it's a really good place to go. The other thing that goes with it that I really like is there's a little community built around it, and the community is full of people, and all those people, because they're actually having to pay to be part of it, are serious about rat care. They're not just there to kind of see what happens and comment and not really buy into anything, but just kind of watch. Like you find in a lot of rat groups, there's a lot of people that don't base their knowledge on an awful lot. There's a lot of people that are very good and very knowledgeable as well and do base it on research, but I find that the community in this group is really good at questioning and coming up with ideas that I wouldn't have thought of, and I really like that. I think it's a great way to learn, and it's a kind of great strong community to be part of, so I get quite a lot out of that as well. The other things that are really good, so you get your videos and kind of watch that, and it's quite nice because it's done by Facebook Live, so if you're organised, you can log on while it's happening and write questions, so as you're listening to the content, stick up a question and I'll generally try and answer that in the video. You also get one-on-one kind of support. Alison keeps office hours once a week where you can ask any questions or have a chat with her and get kind of straight feedback. It's quite useful if you want help like refining a diet or such, because she makes the time specifically to be able to help people like that, and that works really well as well. The PDFs are great as well. They're kind of like a way of looking into each topic, and we have a different topic each kind of, I'll say month, but each week individually also has kind of a special area of interest, which is great. And one of the things I really love as well is we often have challenges, so it'll either be like a kind of observational challenge for a week where you just spend time looking at your rats, and that seems really simple, but when you really do spend time looking at specific behaviour, you'd be surprised how much you learn about your group, what their likes are, what their dislikes are, and what they're afraid of and how they cope with that fear, and how they choose to engage with you. Bless you, Chocobo. So it's really nice, and it makes you look at your relationship with your rats in a slightly different way. So I get quite a lot of that, and then sometimes you get like a week-long series of challenges, so each day you have a different thing to try. So there was a great foraging one where it started off very basic and just scattering food around the cage, and by the end of it you were going into kind of complex puzzles and such, kind of a more logical and ordered sequence than my 12 days of enrichment feeding, where I just had a bit of fun with creating stuff for Christmas. So those kind of things are really enjoyable too, and if you've never kind of taken part in something like that, just bouncing ideas of other people that are sharing their kind of take on things and how their rats are getting on is really, really informative. Overall it's £7.50 a month from memory. I will double check this afterwards. I really should have checked it before starting filming, but it's kind of a small price to pay for me. It's what I would pay for a good magazine subscription, and I get a lot more out of it than that. I should mention there are fun stuff going on as well, so I think there's a monthly raffle with a prize given out for anybody that's in it, and there's also special offers from different rat related businesses every month as well, so you can get, let's say, a special offer on Tic Tac wheels, or I don't know, I think there was a Feeney card offer on that was really good, or some special offer on hammocks where you get a free hammock thrown in from different places, so that's quite fun as well. I'm really organised enough to take part in them. Typically what I do is I'll buy something and the next month there'll be a special offer on it, because sod's law says that happens, but I know a lot of people that have got some really good bargains out of that kind of thing too. Yeah, I will say it's well worth it. I'd say it's the kind of thing that if you want to take things to the next level, and what I cover in my videos is aimed at being the basics plus a little bit, so trying to help people understand the why behind the basics and think about things in a certain way. Where I find with Ratwise it really works well is it takes you to the next step, so it looks quite heavily at scientific research. Some of it I've not actually come across before in the fancy. It actually also calls on quite a lot of information on the kind of dog psychology and the knowledge about dogs, because dogs are studied in kind of behaviourally, beyond rats being studied for how humans might behave, but dogs are studied behaviourally a lot more than rats, but they're very similar kind of socially driven animals, so a lot of the learning is shared. And Alison actually works as a business set up as a dog walker and dog boarder and such, and she's very into the psychology of dogs, and I found some really fascinating learning from that, so well worth a look for that reason too. So if you're interested, Alison's got a page which I'm going to link to at the end, where you can have a look at a typical video, some of the kind of community discussions, some of an example PDF and that kind of thing. The other thing I should quickly mention is if you are a member of that, you get a reduction on the cost of like the ebooks for the Scuttling Gourmet, and she's got a series on rat senses and their perceptions. And understanding senses and perceptions is a brilliant way of understanding why rats behave the way they do. How they see and interact with the world is kind of pivotal in our understanding of how we can interact with them and improve their lives. So well worth a look at all of those things. I'll kind of probably leave it at that and let you explore and see if it's the right thing for you. But I would recommend giving it a go. So bye for now.